Greetings, fellow travelers on this road of life. Welcome back to Doom 2. Doom the way Doom did. So yeah, I am already partway through this level because I was like futzing around with Windows and such, and they showed up on the screen. I'm showing you the intro, the beginning area of this map. This is Nirvana. It's no relation to the band Nirvana, at least not that I know of. I mean, this is from the 90s, so it's from 1995, so Nirvana was probably at the peak of their public awareness of what they were around that time, but I don't think it has anything to do with that, quite honestly. So this is not a very good level at all. This is by Sandy Peterson. This is map 21. And you will actually see the beginning of the map when I go back from Pistol Start. I think this map makes more sense from Pistol Start. I don't necessarily think it's like good either way. I think it's just like under detailed and kind of like uninteresting, with one possible exception. But I don't particularly. For me, this is when Doom 2. Oh wow, there was a bug there. For me, this is when Doom 2 starts to kind of go off the rails a little bit. Because it's the hell episode, you are expecting like the insanity level to ramp up, and it really doesn't outside of a few maps. I mean, there's some, I guess, in terms of the combat, like the combat has definitely gotten more intense, but some of the levels are surprisingly shorter. They're not like super hellish necessarily, to be quite honest. A lot of them aren't anyway, except for like the spirit world, which we'll see later. And like there's rooms like this that it's like, okay, yeah, I get the point of this room. It's to ambush you, and I certainly died here. The other thing is I haven't played these levels very much at all. So I died a lot more, and also I'm just really not used to playing in Chocolate Doom anyway. The controls are kind of different, and there was like I was experiencing some random bits of like slowdown for some reason, and I'm not really sure why, but that's also why I kind of started. Yeah, this is how the map starts, by the way. There's all these guys here. I assume one way that you could do it is sort of snipe those guys a little bit and then back up and pick up some health and just gradually wear away at those guys until you build up your shotgun ammo, and then you can probably fight the revenants. Like, it's not fun to fight them with a single shotgun, but it's certainly doable. So that's how I assume how you do that. But that area that I just got ambushed in and died, like, I do it over again and immediately it's fine. So it's one of those things like Sandy Peterson maps. It just depends on what area you decide to go to. This isn't really an open-ended map, though. Like, you actually just have to go to one area. And the secret really isn't really that clever. Just everything about this map feels very rushed. Like, the shape of this room is just totally square. There's nothing particularly compelling. I mean, I like the idea of beginning a map with like tons of medkits at the beginning that you have to go back to. That's something that was explored. There's a map called the Mucus Flow that's kind of famous. I actually put it, it's from communitychest2.wad. I actually put it, the song from it on like one of my game music mixes. But that map is one where you're given all the supplies at the very beginning, and then you have to kind of continually go back to it, and that has to be good enough for the whole map. So that actually like, and that map is difficult, but that like actually executes on that concept in a way that this map really doesn't. Getting some tea. Yeah, I don't know. There really isn't much for me to say about this map. I feel like I don't have like much positive to say. I think it's brown and kind of depressing. Ignore that window. There's that one area that I'm about to go to that's kind of neat. I mean, there's this one area that's famous for, there's like a bar glide that you can do between the bars to skip picking up the key. I kind of like, I like the starting room of the map. It gives you a sense that like you're about to go into something that you really don't see. Gosh. Oh, and this is your first exposure to that sky texture too, which does look appropriately hellish. Unfortunately, like I don't think the actual level really does. It just looks like another city level to me, to be honest, aside from the fact that you're teleporting more places. Yeah, I don't know. There isn't even much to say in terms of Linguisa's description. Our friend Linguisa from Doom World, who wrote descriptions of each of these maps for something called April Agitation, which is still April now, so that was a couple years ago, I think. He says that Nirvana gets a bad rap, but it's ugly, real ugly. But when you quit harping on about how defective the whole thing looks and focus on the gameplay, it's a map that really has something going for it. I don't really agree. I mean, I can sort of see what it's going for. Try it from pistol start if you haven't already. Those medkits aren't just there for show. Yeah, I get it. I'm still not... I still don't feel like it's a very well-designed map. I kind of like the cramped cavern feeling of this. This room is just kind of unique, but again, it's just like clumps of enemies, and I mean, I'm not doing a very good job handling, but but you can just kind of, shoot at them. I mean, there is one good thing that in terms of like accessibility that this map did. I kind of like that you're sniped by just a huge array of these chain gunners, even though it's not very like elegant enemy placement, but I guess that's the the implication of it being hell or something. This area at least feels kind of hellish, but in a way that's kind of weirdly rushed. I don't know, it has a distinctive feeling to it, and you can imagine something like this being expanded upon in a way that kind of has its own like identity or whatever that might be interesting. I like, the usability thing that I like is that all these, or most of these, are just lifts that you can use. It's not very like apparent, but it's just better than like, there's a lot of like things that people will do with floating platforms in the middle of like pits or whatever that you can't get to otherwise. Like you have to jump to them, you have to teleport to them. There's a lot of like, or you just can't get there. But at the very least, you can just like use them and go there. So that's kind of nice, actually. I'm just used to more bullshit around like platform navigating and trying to figure out like where I can and can't go. I am at this point in the map where I don't need that invulnerability, but I can imagine it being useful, especially if you're pistol starting this, like, and you want to deal with the chain gunners that are coming up later. The ceiling texture is kind of weird too. I mean, I like the texture, but doesn't really match with things. I don't even know where you get the blue key in this map, but you can just run through those bars, and you can actually, I think, glide through those red bars as well. If not, I think maybe it's the yellow bars. So there was a speed run at Games Done Quick one year between two Doom speedrunners, Vortal and Dime. And I remember watching, and Vortal was like quite a bit ahead, and he was trying to do that glide between the bars. I think it was the yellow bars specifically. And he just couldn't do it, and it took him like a ridiculous, like maybe a minute to do it. By that time, like Dime had like fully caught up, and it's one of those things that I don't know if it really saved a minute of time, but it was like stubbornness, Yeah, those kinds of tricks are a lot harder to do than you think they are. I mean, people will talk about SR 50, which you have to do like a correct series of inputs to get. It's basically strafe running, but it's like if you're able to input things in the right direction at the same time. Um, but it's very difficult to get, and I don't know if I've even successfully ever done it, or if I have, I probably didn't even know it. But it's one of those things that just takes an insane amount of practice, and it's certainly a lot of dedication. But those are kinds of things like those weird swag things where it's like it's not practically necessary. And I don't know. I find it like, unless you are doing speedrunning type stuff, I find that kind of stuff impractical. And that's the weird thing about like speedrunning is it's so much about optimization, and I don't know. There's something about it that is very that would be very mind numbing to me, but I'm just not a very detail oriented person. Anyway, you saw Nirvana. This is the Catacombs by American McGee, and this map is fine. Like, there's actually some quite nice detailing on it. It just doesn't fit in anywhere. It feels like a separate map entirely. Let's see what Linguisa said. It would have been interesting to see what else American McGee could make if he had been given more slots in Doom 2's final third to work with. The texture usage in the Catacombs is remarkably incoherent when compared to the Inmost Dens or anything in the early game, but the monster usage is largely the same. Yeah, a lot of chain gunners in this map. It's the next map is worse with chain gunners, though, in my opinion. Well, mainly due to one specific area. I'm not like a fan of overusing chain gunners in general. I think it's just kind of annoying. Yes, he says American apparently interpreted his involvement in the Hell section as an invitation to pour chain gunners into the map. As is his pathological urge to overload a corner of the map with detail down to the last visplane. There are some very nice details in this level, especially compared to the previous and the next levels. It's kind of weird, actually. It doesn't like... my impression when I play these things isn't like, oh, this level is so awesome compared to the previous ones. Even though I do prefer it, it's just kind of jarring is really what it is. Because this amount of detail is more like a modern Doom WAD or something that you would expect from like 1996 or 97. Yeah. Linguisa says, this little kernel of a level may be unlikely to win big at the voter sweepstakes, but it's jam-packed with character and blood loss. Yeah, as you see, I died. I died a lot. I avoided the beginning trap, which is notoriously annoying, of chain gunners just behind those torches, which you would not know and not see the very first time you're playing the map. Presumably the intention is to run straight to the lift, but you can get behind them. It's a nice little secret. There is one secret that I missed here. But yeah, the navigation, I don't know, it's kind of interesting going down these lifts. But it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like the first map of something else, but we never see what that something else is. So it's not that like the map itself is really bad, it's just that like it doesn't by this point we're in the set, we're expecting some sort of like a little more coherency or a little more like, direction, and this just feels like kind of rambling from one thing to another. And while the game is kind of getting more difficult in terms of the combat encounters, like you'd expect the environments to get bigger and stuff, which they do in like a few maps in this series of levels, but not a lot of them. So, and like this map and Nirvana and the next one just kind of, I don't know, they just kind of feel kind of aimless to me. Oh yes, and like you can see the lighting, the shadows. That those are all like things that you have to sort of do manually. And there's a compass, which is a feature that like I don't know why you need it. I guess you need to go there. I'm not even sure that you need to go. No, you do need to go there. I just didn't realize that at first. Um, and those lights, those diagonal lights are actually interesting. That kind of detailing on the ceiling is something you see a lot in modern maps. That kind of like, I forget, I don't know like how to describe what the word is, but yeah, like messing with the ceiling, creative shapes with the ceiling, that kind of, yeah, that's something you see a lot in, especially like I associate it with Alien Vendetta, which is like a Doom PWAD from 2001. So you can see that trend is. I can't believe I died to that. By the way, I don't know. This is one thing playing with. I'm used to playing in Z-Doom where you can aim downward, and like even when I don't like have mouse aim turned on, I usually like the navigation is a little different than it is. It's a little bit more slippery in Chocolate Doom. I don't know how to exactly describe it. The physics are a little bit different. So it makes it a little hard to like stop your momentum. It's kind of hard to describe. And I'm also playing like in a small window, so it's harder to see things because it's at a lower resolution. I understand why even when people play back over these levels, especially with Doom 2, that they play at a higher resolution, because with Doom 2 I feel more like, this really deserves to be played at a higher resolution, whereas Doom 1 felt like the atmosphere was more important and the lower resolution was more important in that. Yeah. So here I'm just like looking for secrets and stuff. Look at the details in that. Like it's pretty impressive. It looks pretty neat. And it's certainly something that you see more and more modern Doom maps. It gives you a glimpse of what to expect, what you might anticipate. So if you like that kind of detail, which it can be very nice, like it does add a distinctive flavor to a lot of maps, then definitely check out a lot more modern Doom maps. I think that's kind of what's made modern Doom mapping a thing that is distinguishable, significantly distinguishable from the original maps outside of like maybe this map, is those kinds of details. But that's why this feels so odd. Yeah. I don't know. Oh yes, and it has the metal texture wrapped around all of the. That's something that I see a lot. I've noticed a lot more now that I notice like texture detailing. Is textures have trouble aligning with each other oftentimes. It's a little bit easier to do with modern maps, but it's still like hard to get things to align correctly sometimes. And in order to deal with that, I'll oftentimes that metal texture is just used in between everything, and you can see it everywhere, especially in John Romero's maps. And I don't mind it, but it gives like a distinctive look, and I don't think that it's always like the best solution unless that's kind of the aesthetic that you're going for. And I think some people will just use that indiscriminately as sort of the you can see the texture cuts off kind of oddly right there. I mean, it does all over Doom 2 and Doom 1. Oh, here's this interesting exit area that does more with it. This is a very modern Doom WAD kind of room. It's pretty interesting, but it's something that you see at like Alien Vendetta, or I guess at the end of Inmost Dens also has it. And Inmost Dens, like American McGee maps, without a doubt, definitely inspired the design in that particular WAD. Okay, here's Barrels of Fun, fairly well-known gimmick map. I think it's an interesting gimmick, and it works well for the first part, and then when it goes away from the gimmick, it just kind of doesn't make any sense as a map after that. But I like this beginning here. Obviously, they don't want you to shoot or you're going to die instantly. And once you alert these guys, you pretty much have to run to the end. It's a fun like gimmick, and then you can go back and, you know, these monsters are a little more decimated, and you can pick up some of the spoils. It's not a bad little setup for those two rooms. It also gives you the computer map, which is nice. Not that I needed it. I don't even think there was a single secret that I needed it for. Because I didn't end up really using it, and I got all the secrets. And I don't really remember much about this map, to be honest. I don't play it very often. I think it is kind of ugly looking. I like this this area maybe is an argument for pain elementals, because it just creates chaos, and you have these barrels here. I don't know. I actually didn't mind the pain elementals, because the whole like vibe of this like room here is going for complete chaos in my mind, and that's like what the map is, because pain elementals in general are really annoying and people hate using them. Definitely pain elementals are up there with chain gunners as the most annoying enemy. And archviles, of course. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of fun to like clear these guys out like that. Like it's obvious that that's what the map wants you to do. It's very choreographed in that way, which I like it when you know what the designers like the designers have something in mind for the level that they're doing. And Sandy Peterson is so wildly inconsistent with that, because like he had an idea, and once he started wandering from his idea, the map starts to make no sense. I like this kind of has a similar thing to the American McGee map that I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's less detail level, but the stair step down is like, it's actually a nice kind of shape of a room to be doing all this ridiculous fighting in. And I like the two exits out of the room, especially because it leads to a neat little secret that's very easy to get as long as you're like paying attention, but if not, then you know you can easily miss it. And this is the first room that we were in. It just opened up, so it's a creative reuse of space too. Unfortunately, like, this space isn't really used again. Like, you would expect, like, this next space to be used again, for example, and it isn't. Because you would think that this is like, oh, it's going to be, like, little sort of gimmick scenarios, and then the area will be reused in some way. And then, literally, the map just goes on to something completely else. And, I mean, that's the issue I had with Nirvana, and this is certainly the issue that I have with, like, the second half of this map, is it's aimless. Like, it's just kind of an idea. It doesn't have a coherent sense of place. And I mean, that's something that I talk about in those Doom mixtape videos that I did a while back, of like having a coherent like narrative or sense of place. These chain gunners are so fucking annoying. You can't hit them. I don't know why. I think it's because there's a wall there or something. I don't know exactly how the physics work. And but it actually caused me a great deal of pain here. You can shoot rockets at them, which I didn't think about, because the splash damage will still hurt them. So that's probably what's intended. I mean, there's a rocket right there, but given like that I've played, you know, Z-Doom a lot, I don't like know that. So it's just obnoxious placement, honestly. It's there to... It's kind of a blind thing, too. You have to run blind into an area not really knowing where you're going and just having faith that you'll hit that teleporter. And this map also brings out the archviles in kind of a weird way. See, you would think the obvious thing to do would be to bring out the archviles in the area where I just killed a bunch of guys and like bring out a couple archviles. That would make complete sense to me, and then have a separate encounter. But no, there's just this kind of random side encounter here, which, like, yeah, sure. I mean, I died because I'm not doing very well. But it's just, like, around a corner for some reason. It just feels kind of random. By the way, it doesn't help that where those chain gunners are is like a the platforms are dark, so you can't actually see them until they start firing at you. It's just, I don't like. There are a few good uses of like winding hallways that slowly reveal guys that I've seen, but that's a general trope that I don't like very much. It feels kind of boring. Yeah, the rest of this map feels kind of boring. I mean, not that I mind killing pinkies, it's easy. I picked up a berserk pack, and like the arachnotrons are not too bad to deal with either because they're pretty weak, and they're only really a real threat if you're at like a long distance or you catch them off guard. So again, not really using the enemies particularly well. And like, what is the identity of this place? It's just kind of a room. Like, what is the identity of I don't know. This is something that like, if somebody showed me this level and I was like asked me to critique it, I would be very kind of confused and disappointed by the second half of it. I think it's frustrating too when a map seems to like be going in an interesting direction too, and then it just kind of takes a hard turn into like, it's obvious that they ran out of ideas or something. I mean, I sort of get the idea of having like an archvile and chain gunners in those windows. It's mostly kind of annoying though because you can't really see them. There is a callback with the barrels here. I forgot about that. But it's not really reused. I kind of like that there's just one chain gunner here. That's actually kind of a neat idea. But then why was any of this other stuff necessary? It doesn't really open up into anything either. You would expect it to like open up back to somewhere. Just kind of a waste of a wasted opportunity for an interesting gimmick map in my mind. I don't know if you ever like. I am moving like shortly, and I really, really want to buy a Nintendo Switch, but I might not be able to because I've just, been spending too much on like moving expenses and everything. Plus my rent is gonna go up. But I really, really want to buy a Switch because Mario Maker 2 is coming out, and like I like lived with a friend when Mario Maker 1 came out, so I got to use their like Wii U, and I made some levels on it. But like playing Mario Maker levels, you can see a lot of the traps that user-made levels fall into. And it's extra frustrating when like, oftentimes it's just kind of an incoherent mess, the levels that people make. So when you see something that is like, it's clearly like has ideas, but they're just kind of like someone is very hot and cold, it always frustrates me because I tend to value consistency, or at least consistency in terms of quality, if not consistency in terms of style. I actually I don't necessarily like it when someone just has one style that they stick to. I like variation and different approaches and different kind of themes and everything like that. But in terms of quality, like in terms of the environment being coherent, that kind of stuff. So it's really frustrating when you see a designer who is so hot and cold, and that really is Sandy Peterson. Because I really can't think of anything particularly nice to say about this part of the map. It's a random use of the Spider Mastermind too, which again, like, I did a shitty job handling that, but it just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. It felt like they just, he's just like, oh, I gotta make this map harder. It feels like this isn't somewhere that, you know, could have had more ideas applied to it, or it was a sketch of an area or something and it just never got finished. But then I know that like the way that he makes maps is like very quickly, so I mean, because there are features with Sandy maps that are kind of cool. Like I do like the placement of these little stim packs everywhere as opposed to just in one place. It kind of adds an interesting little texture, and those are the places that I would defend him in. Or that like little courtyard area, it's kind of bland, but at least there's connections to, it's like a little open, which is kind of neat. Like this area, like in terms of design, isn't too bad. It's an interesting concept, but in terms of execution with like combat, it kind of sucks, and it's too big also, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the map. Let's see what Linguisa says before I forget. Yeah, it's a gimmick map, but its gimmick revolves around one of the most gloriously evergreen activities in Doom: blowing shit up with barrels. Raise your hand if you purposely try and lure small fry monsters near a barrel so you can shoot it, even though it would really just be simpler to shoot the enemy directly. We all do it, right? Yeah, well, that is what barrels are for. So Barrels of Fun takes this universal tick and expands upon it with Mancubi and Hell Knights and Pain Elementals and demons loitering around. And in the process, why not kill a spider demon? Sandy Peterson throws in the kitchen sink, and the result is one of Doom 2's most memorable and gleeful maps, even though if snobs turn up their nose at it. See, that's my thing. I'm not like a snob at with the beginning of the map. I like the first part of the map, but this second part of the map just kind of feels like it's not even about barrels. It's kind of just there. I don't know. I mean, this room is kind of interesting, I guess. I like that texture also, that green ash wall texture. I like the ash wall textures in general for some reason. But yeah, it's not like it's not a matter of like, I don't care necessarily about details and aesthetic stuff. I think people in the Doom community care too much about that stuff. There has been pushback about it, but generally the standards are very high, and like it's the point where like I watched that like Bill Gates video where he's like wearing a trench coat and has a shotgun and is in like Doom 1 map, or episode 1 map 2. And like the only thing that I could think about in that map is like, wow, there are a lot of misaligned textures or like the textures are aligned weirdly here. And it's like something that the Doom community has made me like, has trained my eyes towards noticing now. And I don't really think it matters that much because the average person isn't going to notice that much. And even if they do, they're not going to care that much unless it's obviously off. This is a neat secret, by the way. But so I think it's a thing that is prioritized too much. I get why people's standards are higher now, but that's not what I'm complaining about. What I'm complaining about is just like lack of anything interesting going on in this second part, other than maybe this room. I like that the map ends with just barrels there, although I wish it would do something clever with it. It's just literally just has barrels there. As far as I can tell, there's nothing else to this map. Because I completed everything. I got all the secrets and stuff. I wasn't even trying to. I didn't look up any of the secrets. So whatever works. Yeah, so that was Barrels of Fun. Kind of a little bit of a disappointment for me. And this is going to be a short episode, so I'm going to end here. But I'll be back maybe tomorrow, honestly, with a video about the Chasm, everyone's favorite map, the Chasm, and some more Hell maps. So please stay tuned and enjoy your day.